Welcome back to the Holistic Homes Podcast. I'm Christine, licensed general contractor here in Southern California and holistic construction consultant nationwide, helping you build a healthier home. Today's episode is all about kitchens. We are just going to dive into everything you need to know about building or renovating a healthy kitchen. This topic comes up a lot when it comes to mold remediations. It seems like anytime there is a mold remediation, the kitchen's involved. Whether it's a leaky dishwasher that was never caught, a leaky water line behind a refrigerator or a freezer, the ductwork for the exhaust of your hood not being properly connected to the exterior. And kitchens are just really nasty places. There's cooking, then you're cleaning, you're drinking water, you're storing food in the refrigerator. You've got trash cans that might need to be emptied a lot more frequently than they are. So kitchens should be really a high priority on your healthy home building list. So let's talk about where you should start. And I'll definitely share tips when it comes to renovations, but we really focus on new builds. That is how we can dial it in from start to finish. And so when planning to build your kitchen, you're probably moving things around with the architect on where you want the range and the sink and if you want an island sink or not. So I'm going to give you some things to consider even in the planning stages. So first, let's address where some of the moisture concerns and toxicity concerns can come from the kitchen. Why there's such a big emphasis. The kitchen, you're not only dealing with water events, with appliances that are connected to a water line, like a dishwasher. You might have an ice maker. Maybe you have a water filtration system. You might even have a pot filler, but there's likely a lot of plumbing going on behind the walls of your kitchen. And we want to address how we can more centralize and manage all of that. Also, you get a double whammy when it comes to your range. So is this a gas range? Is it induction? Is it electric? Because gas ranges, especially in tighter homes today, can be problematic when it comes to indoor air quality. So first, let's address the water. That's often the main area of focus, is how can we prevent any undetected leaks and how can we really manage all of these water appliances in the kitchen. So a couple of things to consider when it comes to water. First, on the more exciting topic when it comes to water is water filtration. So water filtration, especially for the kitchen, you're going to want to consider two different approaches. The one that we prefer is having whole home water filtration that is feeding the whole home. And then we're also layering in what's called point of use water filtration. So instead of paying a very high premium to have drinking level quality to the entire home that you're maybe flushing your toilets with or bathing in, instead of having it RO water, which isn't great for your whole home plumbing anyways, instead of having it RO water or drinking level quality, have whole home water filtration and then a dedicated ultra filtered water system under the kitchen sink. This is then where you typically have a spigot and you're filling up your glass of water and that's what you're drinking. That is going to go much further for the level of water that you're drinking than trying to find a system that can feed the whole house. And so having a dedicated space, it's typically under the kitchen sink. It's going to take up a lot of space, but having ultra filtered water at your kitchen sink. Now, here's how we make this even sweeter. Is we like to create a dedicated wet zone. So if you look at your kitchen today, or even the one that you're planning, think that you have X-ray eyes and that you can see behind the walls, and now envision where would all of the plumbing lines be in your kitchen. It's likely a spider web of plumbing that's feeding the sink, the dishwasher, and over to the refrigerator and freezer. So instead of all of that, we like to centralize the plumbing to one dedicated area, meaning that there would be a kitchen sink, a dishwasher, and then an under-counter ice maker, all right there. The benefit of doing that is that your under-counter ice maker can be fed by your under-counter ultra filtered drinking water. So now your ice is the same quality as the water that you're drinking. What this also does is eliminates the need to run a water line all the way over to the refrigerator and freezer, if you're okay with having an under-counter ice maker instead of all of that, because the refrigerator is not typically fed with the ultra filtered drinking water. It can be, but if we have everything centralized at the kitchen sink, we eliminate the need to run a plumbing line over to the refrigerator and the freezer. The other benefit to this is now we have a dedicated wet zone, and we can have drip pans for the dishwasher and a drip pan for the ice maker. And if there is a leak, it's contained and we can be alerted about it right there at those appliances. Our general rule of thumb is any appliance that has a water line connection should have a drip pan. If it can leak, it might leak, and you don't want to find out about it in 15 years when you go to renovate the kitchen again, because not a lot of people are pulling out their dishwasher or their refrigerator for routine maintenance. And so having a dedicated wet zone with ultra filtered water is a darn good consideration. But you might be asking, what about the pot filler? What happens with the pot filler? My take on pot fillers is don't do them. They're really not that great. And if you talk to a handful of contractors, they'll tell you that they are taking out more than they are putting in. From a healthy home perspective, here's the take on pot fillers. They're nasty. The reason that they just aren't great because they're not being used often enough. So pot fillers is another water line over to the range area. So if you eliminate the pot filler, you eliminate the water line and the potential leak source. Number two is the pot filler water line, just like all of the plumbing in your home, is always charged, meaning that there is always water in that water line. It's just ready to go the moment you turn it on. Now, if you are using your pot filler once a month for pasta night, that means you are filling up your pasta water pot with stagnant water that's been sitting in that line for 30 days or since the last time you filled up a pot of water with it. So they are handy, I'll give you that. But after talking through some other considerations with clients, I can tell you I have less than 5 clients who have ever opted to proceed with installing a pot filler. Many more prefer to use the ultra filtered water at the kitchen sink to fill it up. And just the way that it's used, even after you have a pot of water, you still have to take it over to the sink anyways to empty it. So use that as you would like. That is my take on pot fillers, and there's no harm in having one. I just want you to have the information around the water line and the water that is sitting in the line when you fill it up. Continuing on the topic of water, because that is an emphasis when wanting to create a really healthy, mold-safe home, we have to manage the water. And the kitchens have a lot of water lines. So we really take this 2-part, almost 3-part approach to not being in a position of just undetected water leaks happening in the kitchen. So the 3-part approach is going to be, first and foremost, every home gets a whole home leak detecting system. This is a system that's installed closer to where your main water line is coming in, and it is monitoring and detecting the flow of water that is coming into your home. If it alerts a leak or an appliance break or any sort of malfunction with anything connected to the water lines, it's going to alert you first and foremost. Then our second line of defense is going to be every appliance that has a water line connection gets a leak pan. So this is a stainless steel pan that the appliance is sitting on, and it has a small lip on 3 sides. So if there is a small drip over time, that leak is contained within the pan And if it is a big enough leak, it's going to run to the front of the pan and you would visually see it. And our third piece to that puzzle is having leak detectors. So you are probably thinking, well, that's 2 leak detectors. That's right, but the whole home leak detector is connected to the water line. The third piece that I'm talking about is a small battery operated leak detector that has sensors on the bottom of it. So if it comes in contact with like 1/16 of an inch of water, it's going to have a very loud alarm sound and you're gonna run to it. You're gonna hear about the leak much sooner than if it were just left. And so these are something that we put behind every appliance and even in the front of some appliances as well. And real quick, if this episode is helpful for you, click the button below, subscribe. We're putting out episodes every week with a ton of helpful content in creating your healthy home. And if you want to take it a step further, there's also a link below on how we can work together and help you in your project. Let's get back to it. Shifting away from water, let's talk about indoor air quality in your kitchen. The biggest contributor to indoor air quality is going to be the range that you select. And this is a big topic. There are even some jurisdictions throughout the US that are putting restrictions on gas appliances. I'm here in California. We've got some restrictions when it comes to gas appliances. I know recently a project we were working on in the Long Island area, there was a big push for 2026 to be the year of banning indoor gas appliances. For certain appliances, they wanted to completely do away with gas. I believe that is on pause, but nonetheless, you're gonna need to make a decision on the appliances that are going in. And when it comes to your range, what I find is that personal preference is often the driver, but we need to talk about what the contributing factors are if you're gonna go with gas, induction, or electric. Unfortunately, there is no one perfect solution, but here's how we typically approach the appliance topic. First, we start with what does the client actually want? Do they prefer cooking on gas? Do they really love induction? What do they actually enjoy cooking on? Because the last thing that you're going to want is to put in an appliance that you actually don't enjoy cooking on, but you are stuck with that because that's what was installed and that's what was run for. And so here's how we approach the appliances. First, we need to address indoor air quality. The truth is, combustion gases, whether it's a furnace or a range, contribute to your indoor air quality and not in a positive way. So building tighter homes, the goal is also eliminate combustion gases within the interior of the home. If you are wanting to have a gas range, but also a super high performing home, that is very much possible. We just need to plan for it on the mechanical side. So we work very closely with what I say is the best mechanical designer in the United States. He's incredible and handles just about every project we are consulting on. And we make it very clear on what the appliances are and what needs to be provided for fresh air, if there's a need for makeup air, but understand what appliance is the ideal first, because anything can be done in a healthy way. We just have to have the information. So if you're opting for a gas range, that's going to have a trickle effect down to the mechanicals, and that needs to be a priority in the mechanical design as well. Also, if you are planning a gas range, we want to see layered in checks and balances for carbon monoxide. So every home is going to have a carbon monoxide detector up at the ceiling, like a smoke and a carbon monoxide detector. Great. We also want to see carbon monoxide detecting down at the range level. So typically a monitor that is right adjacent to the range, because gas appliances can leak. It's not just about when you're cooking. There's supply lines and those can leak as well. So gas range. And then also when it comes to electric and induction, on the other side of the spectrum, there can be EMF and dirty electricity concerns when it comes to going 100% electric, more so with induction. There's some studies out there that show the safe distance and proximity to an induction range, but there's no distance and proximity when it comes to an induction range because you're standing at it and you're cooking. Induction ranges are used a lot in passive homes because they are so airtight that a gas range or combustion gases within that boundary is really not ideal. And so we see a lot of induction and electric ranges. They're not always the most fun to cook on, truthfully. There's plenty of times I've seen induction ranges swapped out for gas ranges. And so our take on the range is that it should be wired and plumbed for both gas, meaning that there would be a gas line run, capped off. It doesn't need to be connected to anything, but it is at least run to that location, as well as electric for if it's an induction or an electric range, so that you or any future homeowners of that home can pick what they want to have in that place. Still needs to be coordinated on the mechanical side to understand like downstream effects, but you can have both. It just needs to make sense for how airtight the home is and what the mechanicals are and determine how much fresh air or makeup air is needed. On the topic of makeup air, this was a big thing that came, I would say probably more like 10, 15 years ago is when makeup air really was trying to be figured out, because what happened as efficiency got tighter and hoods were extracting more air in the home, it was discovered that makeup air was needed so that the home was not put under negative pressure, because the homes are so much tighter than they were 20 or even 50 years ago. So when you kick on an exhaust fan that's designed to pull out air in the home, in some instances, it was like pulling soot from the chimney down because the home was suffocating. And so now there's a very silly rule of thumb that's something like 400 CFM that it would need makeup air. The truth is it needs to be fully calculated and designed in the mechanical design of the home to determine exactly how much makeup air is needed for the home as its entirety, not just for the kitchen hood, but something to keep in mind. And so makeup air is often a topic during the kitchen design. Kitchens are a big topic, so there's definitely more to cover here, but that's what I want to share with you today. So share this with somebody who might be going through a kitchen renovation or planning a new build and just wants to really dial things in. And as always, like and subscribe below so that you can always see our new episodes coming out each week. And if you are planning a custom new build project and you really want a high level of support, click the link below and share with me about your project so I can share how we can work together one-on-one.